Today I want to answer a question that I get asked all the time, and I see that people are researching with no real answer, which is, if you do a short Pilates course, one of those level 3 2-weekend educations, will you actually be able to get a job? And will studios and other instructors actually take you seriously? Now, I want to give you an honest answer to this, and I am in a slightly unusual position to do so because I do actually work as an assessor and an instructor on one of these short courses. So I've seen them from the inside, and my answer might surprise you. First, let me be specific about the sort of education I'm talking about. So I'm talking about the trainings like diverse trainers, HFE, fitness first, the ones that are roughly 2 weekends for your mat, which is always a prerequisite to doing the reformer course. And then you move on to the reformer, which is another 2 weekends. And that's your qualification, 4 weekends total. Now, if you go online and ask whether this is enough, you'll find very inconsistent answers because a lot of people are going to tell you you should do a fully comprehensive education or that you need a longer education to fully understand the system. Short courses are dangerous and that studios won't touch you. And here's the thing, from a few people, I think that comes from a genuinely good place, but I think it also really misses the point of what these courses are fundamentally designed to do. And that's what I want to unpick. So with any of these short courses, the assumption that underpins all of the education and how it's taught is that you're already a competent mover. You've been practicing Pilates maybe for a few years. You know how your body responds on a reformer. You've heard a million different cues from a million different instructors, and you kind of know the structure and the script already, as well as understanding how the movement feels in your own body and the benefits of it. Like, why else would someone want to become an instructor in something that they don't enjoy themselves? And don't get me wrong, there are the occasional few who just see the opportunity, and it is happening as well that there are some gyms that will pay for their instructors to do short courses because there's such a demand for the reformer. But these existing instructors, don't forget I said movers, as I think you can kind of pick up a lot of principles of Pilates safely. I'm not saying that it'll be like super true to the original method or anything, but that's not really what we're being taught in group classes anyway. But these people, whether they're personal trainers, yoga instructors, they have some sense of how to move, what's safe, what's not, and how to understand how to lead a group. So yes, there are exceptions to the rule of who's coming onto these educations, but it's not really who these courses were initially designed for. Because in what other industry do we actually just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to do this? Like, without ever having practiced the thing. That's like me just waking up tomorrow and suddenly deciding I'm going to be an astrophysicist, which I did actually do once to my mum. I just woke up one day, I read a book about space and then decided that I was going to be an astrophysicist, which lasted for about a week, I think. But to my point, if on a whim you decide to do it, it's unlikely that most people will actually on that whim follow it through without having ever practiced the thing. So what these courses are actually doing is they're teaching you how to teach, specifically how to plan a class, how to sequence progression safely, deliver a class that matches client expectations in terms of flow and intensity, and how to cue clearly in a group. Like how to stand in front of a room of 12 people and use your words and communicate to 12 different bodies at once in a way that works for all of them, almost. It's never all. I've been doing this a while. There's always someone who just looks. That's what those 4 weekends are focused on. What they're not, and I think this is important to be clear about, is they're not really for deepening your own practice. There isn't really time for that. Now, as a side effect, you might learn a couple of new things, but it's not the focus of the course to improve your own technique drastically, as the assumption is already there that you have that. So if you're thinking about doing an instructor training to deepen your own practice, there are instructor trainings where you will get that. And these are more often going to be the boutique mentorship style ones rather than the chain ones. But if that is what you're interested in, I would also just equally recommend looking into getting private sessions, as if you're trying to deepen your own practice, that's going to be the most effective, cost-efficient way. These are group teaching courses. They have been built to meet the demands of a growing industry or the studio and gym market, which is where the majority of the work is. So if you go with one of these courses, are you insurable? Yes. A short course from a recognized level 3 provider will get your insurance for both your group classes and your one-on-ones. There is very little focus on managing injuries, contraindications, and anything rehabilitation focused on these courses. But again, I'll remind that these courses are designed to be an entry level so that you can start teaching group classes of adults who have been screened and deemed healthy enough to participate in group exercise. This doesn't mean that after you've completed your course, you should never take any more education ever again, but it is that first point of entry. After that, you can go deeper into courses. There are CPDs for everything. You can do CPDs on feet. You can do CPDs on scoliosis, breath. For athletes, there are specific courses for rotational sports, so things like golf and tennis. Like, literally think of it, it exists, I promise you. If it is your goal or your dream to work with more clinical clients, whether it's post-surgical, rehabilitation, whatever it is, this course can still be that entry point. You gain the experience of teaching the bodies in front of you while you supplement with continual professional development courses, as then it does make it easier to have your foot in the door. Or from the beginning, you can just take a more rehab-focused education. So clinical Pilates, specifically the studios that come to mind are APPI and Breathe Pilates in Australia. I think there are other ones. I think Pulse is pretty rehabilitation focused as well. And this is where I really have been pushing back on the narrative. When did we last look at a group reformer class and think that this was the right environment for someone in physical rehabilitation anyway? Like, this is a screening and an intake issue. It's not a qualification issue. And the two things get conflated constantly, and I'm kind of tired of it. Now let's address this directly because it always comes up. The argument that goes,
500-hour education makes you more qualified.
And I want to ask, 5 hours of what exactly? Let's actually look at these short course hours, because I think there's a perception problem here. One course is being framed as weekends, and 2 weekends sounds really short. And another one is being framed as 500 hours, which sounds really long. To be certified on Reformer on any of these short courses, you have to do 2 weekends for your mat education and pass that first. So it's actually 4 weekends to be Reformer certified, which if you add that all up, it's about 64 hours. When in comprehensive educations, if you look at the in-person hours, it's usually approximately 60 to 100 hours of in-person taught hours, and you're covering even more equipment in that time. The other 400 hours are observation, self-practice, assistant teaching, all of that kind of stuff, which the short courses aren't selling, but it is a part of those courses. So for HFE diverse trainers, Fitness First, you still have to do your practice teaching hours. You still have to do the online learning and anatomy. So depending how long that takes you, add 40 hours for your practice teaching hours, add another 60 hours for your online learning and anatomy, maybe more, and then add infinite observation and practice hours, whether it was as a prerequisite or while you're on the course. Then suddenly 500 hours, which includes all of that observation, practice, and so on and so forth, versus 2 weekends, which isn't including all the work on top. They actually don't look that different. So when researching into your courses, look and break down those hours. And I think even a lot of veterans in this community aren't seeing that or don't understand that. So the actual question, most studios and gyms operating group reformer concepts are actively looking for instructors. The turnover in this industry is high. For any studio owner, gym owner, or recruiter, they know the landscape of the industry, and they know that a short course graduate who is a strong mover, clear communicator, owns a room, loves what they do, is far more useful to them than someone with a very long education, maybe knows a lot of anatomy, but has no idea how to manage a room, has no idea how to progress their clients, and is maybe a little bit snobby and elitist about certain movements, as some schools can get a little bit like,
well, we don't do it this way.
And can be a little bit diva, if I'm honest. And when they're looking at you in an audition or even on your CV, the main question they're going to ask themselves is, can this person teach a class that clients and members are going to want to come back to? Will you get respect from other instructors? That's a little bit more complicated because that's very person to person. If I'm completely honest, there is going to be a cohort of people in the industry who will look at your qualification and make a snap judgment, but I think it's actually just a few people being very loud rather than a lot of people actually thinking negatively of these educations. Most instructors I know are glad that these shorter courses are creating a lot of instructors and allowing their regulars to become certified instructors, because there is so much work and the pressure becomes a lot. If you're teaching full time, then it just becomes a lot of pressure in terms of finding cover and being able to be flexible, which is one of the reasons we wanted to get into this job. But then we suddenly feel a little bit suffocated and trapped because there's no one to cover. And I think those ones who are very very loud, I don't really think they've got a leg to stand on. In terms of fear of danger, the more people that do something, the more risk there is someone's going to get injured. But so far, we are still looking at like injuries from 10 years ago as examples of how reformer can be dangerous, which just tells me that severe injuries aren't happening very frequently at all on reformer. Otherwise, there would be far more clear examples of people being used across the media. The education doesn't determine a good instructor. What determines a good instructor is how well you understand your students, how clearly you communicate, and most importantly, how you keep developing after your course ends, whether it's a 500-hour one, whether it's a 2 to 4 weekend one. A short course is a door in where you can start building your experience. What you do once you're certified, that's entirely up to you. So if you're considering a short course, I'm wondering whether it's worth it. My honest answer is it kind of depends what you're expecting. You will not have problems getting work if you are an experienced mover and a clear communicator. Studios don't really care about the name of the education as much as social media might make you think. And this is why we're seeing auditions, because what they do care about is people who understand movement and are clear communicators and hold a room. If you have done one of these educations and you're watching this video, I'd be curious to hear about your experience of it and how you found it working in the industry. Or feel free, as usual, to write to me on Instagram, send me a message, send me with your content ideas as well. Always super helpful to know what you want to know. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.